You're listening to The Play Pouch, and today we are discussing the lives of games companies. There's been a growing trend of various people trying to lie through their teeth in order to sell us their products, whether through a saturated market or just plain greed. We are now bombarded by it. What can we do to stop it? How can we educate people? So let's begin with some classic examples, shall we, old pal? This is going to be a corker.
Wow.
Um,
Okay, so when you think of so let's start. We'll try to start at the beginning. When you think of dodgy games company,
mm.
or or the biggest company in games you don't trust, what is the first company that comes into your mind right away? The
Well, I
first.
don't know who the company is, but I can tell you which game started the trend. So
Okay.
if we go from there, which is a little show called E3 way back in 2005, we had a pre-rendered trailer from Killzone 2. Do you remember that?
Killzone 2. That was a PlayStation exclusive game, wasn't it? I never played it.
Yeah.
I do remember
No.
it vaguely.
Well, just as well, really, because there was a pre-rendered trailer, and it looked so good. Um, that people were just amazed by it. They bought it, and then when they obviously went to play it, it was nothing like the trailer. Um, it's that sort of false marketing type of thing that we're going on about. And Killzone 2, I don't know who the makers were. It could be Volition, it could be someone else. I have no idea, but yes, that pretty much started the trend. I don't remember anything before that. And yeah, ever since then, we've had just like loads and loads and loads and loads. But getting back to your question, what's the first sort of company you think of
Mm,
when you say false marketing?
yeah.
Well, you could pick, really. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? Because it's happening all the time.
A lot of them have become that way, but I'm just trying to uh, register in my mind who was the first culprit, I suppose. I actually didn't remember the Killzone stuff. That's the truth. I didn't. Maybe
Mm,
because it was a PlayStation exclusive and I had no intention of playing it, so my focus wasn't it. I do remember my focus being on a game called Alien Colonial Marines, which I first heard
yeah,
about. Wow, like it took 10 years for them to get it up and running.
yeah,
And in the end, it was worked on by different companies. And in the end, it was released by Gearbox,
right,
who are the people who did the Borderlands series, and they
it,
got flamed terribly because their trailer for it ended up being a complete fabrication, and the game that came out was a train wreck and had nothing of the sort of the gameplay in the trailer. That was my first big outrage, I suppose. Maybe because I was following the game because I like aliens.
yeah.
So I like their game. Well, I say I like their game. Most of their games don't end up that great, other than Alien Isolation. But that was my first. Like, okay, so that is false advertising, and I think they were taken to court. I know that Sega, who were involved in the publishing as well, I believe, had to issue almost an apology, saying, "Yeah, we don't like what Gearbox has done. We don't stand for it," or stuff like that. And
Yeah,
Randy Pitchford, who was the leader of Gearbox, I remember all the lies, and I remember there's a YouTuber called Jim Sterling, or I don't know what he calls himself nowadays. I still like him, but I don't know what he actually officially calls himself. Um,
a whole
did
different kettle of fish, dear.
Yeah, and he had a massive public falling out where with Randy Pitchford. And Randy Pitchford like called him out and saying, "Oh, this is overweight British guy who keeps on having a go at me," and stuff like that. That's what I remember
Mm.
being the first big, and then the second probably was Watch Dogs.
Well, just to mention Aliens, Colonial Marines again,
Yeah.
it turns out that one of the biggest issues was the enemy AI, and how funny it was. How just like how much of a joke it was. There's plenty of videos out
Oh
there if
yeah,
you want to take a look.
very
But
funny stuff.
one modder discovered that there was one mistyped
Yep, that's right.
code
I remember
in the
this.
coding, and he fixed it, and the AI was just like a million times better.
And it was more or less a completely different game. It still wasn't great because obviously there's other things wrong with it. But
Yeah.
the AI started actually behaving like much more like real aliens could, rather than the comedy show we got. But yeah, Peter, that was the first. That was the big one that I first remember.
Mm.
I'm sure there are other ones, but that was the first one where it's like, yeah, okay, so the trailer is fabrication. Whether or not what the intention was at the time, I don't know. I mean, obviously they built the trailer, so you'd have to assume that at the time the intention was that the game was going to end up
Yeah.
something resembling the trailer, but the end product, it was nothing of the sort.
It's probably prudent to move on to Fable and Peter Monolou. But before we do that, there was an E3 presentation in 2009 with Kinect and Project Milo.
Oh yes.
Now, I remember seeing this Project Milo demonstration, and I just remember being blown away by it. I was like, "Oh, this looks amazing, man! Imagine this. We can just properly interact with, an NPC." I thought it was a great idea, but it didn't go anywhere. It turns out eventually that people discovered that it was just a fake video, and they hadn't really sort of built much of this Project Milo at all. It was just marketing fodder for the Connect, and that really just pissed me off. Um, but
They were trying to sell the potential of the Connect. Of course, it was all
yeah,
unrealized potential, and we know how the Connect ended up in the end. Of course, it's
well,
well,
I'm disappointed that people didn't take to the Connect. I thought it was a good idea. I mean, I know there's this whole sort of like
I,
spying issue, but
yeah. I mean, the motion controls, like I remember the first motion controls I played was on the Wii, the original Wii. And
mm,
I thought for what it was, I mean, okay, yeah, it didn't register, it didn't pick up everything, but it picked up enough. The nunchuck things
yeah,
obviously were what were doing the work. But then, I remember playing the Wii Sports games. It was just basic things, playing silly things like bowling and baseball, and for that stuff, I thought it was quite good. But that obviously is the Nintendo Wii, and then obviously Kinect obviously was meant to be the kind of the next evolution of that. The Kinect for me always, it struggled to pick up certain motions. At least
yeah.
the original one. I know that they made a slightly advanced one, which I didn't touch, but the original one, that was my memories of it.
I,
Um,
I think the only game that really sort of incorporated it fairly decently was one of the Dead Rising games. I think it was the third one, unless
Dead
I'm
Rising
mistaken.
3.
Yeah, it's either two or three, probably three.
I think that stuff works well. For example, like I think the Just Dance games and all stuff like that. I think for that kind of stuff, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
For like those that kind of dance where it is 100% movement. But then there's other games like there was a Star Wars game again. Angry Joe did a review, which is just fantastic. Um, and the Star Wars like Kinect game, and most of it is an absolute train wreck. His reaction is just
It was when
just
he actually what gets me with that video is when he's really excited
he realizes what it actually is, and it's just like, look on his face is classic.
it's like this a certain mode that he sort of clicks on, and it's like Han Solo doing like this really sort of crappy dance, and
Yep.
it's just his heart sinks. Oh God, it's just
It's great, and
yeah,
there was another review he did. I think it's called Sonic Free Riders,
yeah,
which was another classic where basically the Kinect just, in order to obviously navigate, you had to like lean back and forth, and the Kinect had it did. And I remember thinking this as well. The Kinect had a big problem sometimes with leaning,
yeah,
and it just couldn't register it, and so. I think maybe the idea was sound. The technology just wasn't there, and probably still it isn't.
yeah.
Most, at least for commercial consumption. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
no, it wasn't polished, but they could have certainly taken on the whole sort of voice recognition stuff, and
Oh yeah.
and ran with that. I think that was it was the only real sort of thing that was working, pretty much. But Fable and Peter Molyneux, the guy's just sort of he's living in fucking La La Land. There's no with
He's
Fable he promised so many things Like you could plant. He said that you could plant a seed in the earth and it would grow into a tree and all this kind of stuff.
And this was for his Project Milo game, was it? Is that what he said he could
No, no, no.
replicate?
This was for Fable. This was one of the Fables. Before one of the games came out, he said, "Oh, yes, you can do all this and that," but no, no, none of it ever sort of materialized.
I used to think he was a decent enough fellow when he did like Populous, which was his kind of coming out party, and then he
Hmm.
made Black and White. I don't know if you remember that,
Vaguely.
which was okay. Yeah, I mainly remember you could was these giant creatures that you could kind of interact with and tame, and they'd have mannerisms and stuff, and that was the kind of the big selling point.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of went off the rails a little bit
Well,
with the Fable
he
stuff.
got enabled. He got enabled by Microsoft, and he just started getting more and more outlandish, and yeah, his reputation is forever tarnished now with all of this bollocks. I mean, like this shit that he's doing at the moment is like some sort of NFT
Oh
style
God.
game or something, isn't it?
Oh dearie me. He's late to the party on that one. I'll
It's
tell
like
you that.
whatever, Pete. But yeah, I mean, like, I think really the biggest one. I mean, like, we can forego the Warcraft 3 Reforged issue. Uh, that's an example. Really,
Yeah.
one of the biggest ones is the No Man's Sky issue, and I don't know what the guy's name is. I've forgotten. Um,
The bloke from Hello Games.
yeah, what was it, Sean or something? I can't remember.
Sean Murray, was
But
that it?
yeah, something like that. But
Yeah, I think it was that.
he made so many promises. He said, yes, you can do this, yes, you can do that. And then the game comes out and it's just a complete load of wank. And again, Angry Joe makes a great video out of it. Um, I mean, that was bordering on egregious. It was really bad. And
I've always tried to put myself in his position because they're a much smaller company. They're quite a small company.
hmm,
So you just wonder, did he just get in way over his head? And like like where it's like he maybe he told a little white lie, and then he had to tell another lie, and then another one, and
yeah,
then it just blew out completely of proportion. So um, because if you look at their track record after the disastrous launch, they've actually been really good, as if they've been trying to make it up, and they probably have now.
oh, they definitely
Uh,
have. They definitely,
so that suggests to me that they probably didn't have bad motives. That it was just this guy just got. I think he got in way over his head.
yeah,
And maybe at the start he really believed he could pull it all off, and then it dawned on him that he couldn't, but he didn't know how to get out of it. That's what I think, because they've then spent the last 7 or 8 years turning the game into the game they promised originally, and they've done it without any DLC charges. So they haven't charged anyone for any deal. There's been zero charge. You bought the game, obviously,
yeah.
and there's been zero, not one, which is kind of crazy, really. I mean, I know they're on Game Pass, so obviously they've got a continuous deal with Microsoft, which probably keeps them afloat. But still, to not charge any DLC and put 7 or 8 years of work in to create a game, which is pretty damn good nowadays.
Yeah.
So props to them for that. But I believe that, yeah, I mean, you can't say they weren't guilty of it. They were guilty of it. But I do think, unlike Gearbox, which leaves a bad taste in my mouth with how they did the Alien thing, I actually think it was just too much.
Well, I kind of think that it was not necessarily Hello Games, more so with Microsoft.
It could have been they wanted the game out. Yeah, it could have
Yeah,
been. Yeah.
and we'll get to the Microsoft towards the end, but yeah. So yeah, No Man's Sky was like a very good example of that. Another one was Fallout 76 and Bethesda, and this kind of, I mean, I think a lot of people are forgetting that Todd Howard, before Oblivion came out, said that there was this new AI thing they had made up called Radiant AI, and it involved NPCs having proper schedules throughout the day.
Yeah, I remember that.
You could
I
follow
remember.
them around, yeah. And when we get the game, it's like half of them just stay in one spot, and it's just like, what?
Didn't it end up being that basically all it was based upon is the time of day? So at night time they were in one certain place, and then during the day they were.
They were in bed
Yeah.
or something. It's just like, right, okay. But with Fallout 76, it just got way out of hand. There was that presentation where he said, that classic line, 16 times the detail, and he was just really selling it hard, and it comes out and it's a load of buggy bollocks.
Pete, I would like to say thank you to Todd Howard, because without him doing what he did, I would never have come across the song "Tell Me Lies" from Fleetwood Mac, which I played a lot because it was so funny, and I actually end up quite liking the song now. So I like the song thanks to Todd Howard and his Little Lies, as the
Yes.
video goes.
Well, I wouldn't say little, but
Yeah. Um, I don't know. He's always. It's become a running gag that you know that he's gonna, in every new game that comes out, he's gonna come up with some stats, and you know that it's probably, the Starfield one is 1,000 planets. And everyone's just like, yeah, right. Um,
is it 1,000 pound? It can't be.
if you include, I think if you include all the moons, and like if you include all the moons, which you can technically land on most of them, it might be. But you have to include all the moons and all the gas giants which you can't land on. You probably, maybe, I haven't counted. I'm sure someone has, but if you add
Yeah,
if you add all that, if you add all the small moons, like, you see a gas in the game, there's a gas giant, right? And then there's like 8 moons, so that's 9 planets.
yeah.
Technically, that's 9 planets, even though you can barely interact with any of them. I don't know. I'm I, I'm not sure.
Well,
Um,
yeah. I mean, like he was very careful with the run up to the release of Starfield. He didn't really come out with much bollocks, except to say, "Oh, yeah, you can't land on planets yourself," and all this kind of thing. But anyway, yeah. So that Fallout 76 was just absolutely dire when it first came out. There were no NPCs, and it's just like we were expected to just sort of like take orders from some sort of fucking machine or something. I don't know. But
I think he thought that basically, I think how he saw it, I'm just how it comes from my opinion, is that he was like, oh yeah, I'm going to give you a sand. I'm going to give you lots of sand to create this world. I'm not going to do much. I'm not going to provide any NPCs. You're going to be allowed to make your own fun. And I think Angry Joe put it very well when he said, yeah, you don't want to you don't want to make gamers the creators of the storylines in their own games, because you're going to get all griefing, which is what ended up happening. Um, it's like they just kind of like skipped stuff with the cold quest thing. It's just like, no, we'll have the players create their own gameplay in the world we provide, and
yeah,
we'll leave it as that. It's like no, that's not.
and a good
That's
a good example was that people were giving away the nuke codes
that's
online,
that's great,
right? And
Pete.
then there were like
That's
multiple people dropping it on the same server, and it would just crash the
just to
server.
crash the server. That's
Yeah.
great.
It's just like, well, you give people the tools to do this,
Yeah,
mate.
you know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, Jesus Christ. These
I don't.
guys
I,
won't
don't-
learn.
I don't know what I can't. I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, I remember hearing the rumors for years before that they wanted to do some kind of an online Fallout, but I still don't know why they thought that was the way to do it.
Yeah, they should have just,
Because
yeah.
they've got the Elder Scrolls Online, which I did play initially. I haven't played it in many years, so I couldn't tell you if it's any good now. It had its moments. So I thought that when they were just going to do a Fallout version of that, which was just going to be an
Mm.
MMO in the same vein of the kind of classic vein of Warcraft and everything. And obviously, Elder Scrolls Online is still around, so I mean they've obviously making money on it, or it would have
Well,
closed years ago.
it's Zenimax, isn't it? It's not
ZeniMax,
necessarily
yeah, yeah,
Bethesda.
yeah.
And obviously, that's kind of partly why we don't have Elder Scrolls 6 at the moment. And why we
That's
haven't
right,
had
yeah.
it for a long time is because ZeniMax wanted to sell Elder Scrolls Online and all this kind of shit. Um, but yeah, no, they should have just sort of not bothered with Fallout 76 and just sort of worked on Starfield and making it better, I guess. I don't know. Um, so moving on to um, Watch Dogs. We had a really, really beautiful looking trailer in 2012 at E3.
So Watch Dogs was based mainly on the graphics, wasn't it? It was so downgraded. The final game was so downgraded compared to the trailer.
Yeah, yeah, and in 2014 when it came out, it looked nothing like the trailer, and people were really, really annoyed. Um, yeah, I mean, I was one of them. I remember looking at the trailer thinking, "Oh, this is going to be sick," but no, yeah, it was just
Didn't
lies.
didn't I'm trying to remember? Didn't someone again? I remember watching YouTube videos at the time. Didn't somebody find out that they went into the files and they re-added some of the effects, and that the effects were all there, but they were just turned off, like the rain
Yeah,
effects and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, this is the problem when you sell your product, and in order to sell the product to get as many buyers as possible, you have to make your trailer look as good as possible. So you have all these editors going, "Oh, let's switch on ray tracing. Let's switch on, like this lumen style ambient occlusion and all these really, really heavy, expensive effects that an end system cannot possibly run it at the time anyway." Um, and then people buy it and then they play it and they think they're stupid enough to not remember or whatever. And that's what's annoying. And that's what happened with Watch Dogs. That's what happened with Killzone, and that's what happened with No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk. But we'll get onto that in a sec. So yeah, what Watch Dogs is another good example of it. Um, there was an issue as well. I think you'll have to help me out here because um, there was something to do with Mass Effect 3, wasn't there? Like before it came out, there was some sort of
Um,
something to do with a kid, and like they cut it all out when it first came out, and they rushed the ending and stuff.
the Mass Effect 3, yeah. What I remember most about initially is the fact that was one of the first day one DLCs that I ever saw. Um, Day one DLC. So this wasn't like obviously the game's out and then 6 months or 3 months, even 3 months down the line. This was day one DLC, which was the Promethean character,
Right.
which was if you're a fan of the Mass Effect series, you will buy that DLC because he's so crucial. Even though the end result is you can actually do it without him, but the sell is so crucial. Oh, this is the ancient race of people that we've heard so much about, and now you're finally going to get to play as one.
Mm.
So and it was really egregious. It really was
Yeah.
because they knew that everyone who was hooked into their games would have to buy that. They would have to buy that DLC.
Yeah.
Um, and it was one of the first times I remember it happening, the whole day one DLC, because there was quite a lot of blowback to it. But I think what you're talking about is the ending, which God, they
Well, yeah,
they had to. Everyone, I don't think anyone liked that ending. I mean, I don't mind about spoilers. I think it's such an old game. If you, we can, I think we should be able to talk about the ending. I mean, it ended up being a simple choice between blue and red, which is so silly considering that the Mass Effect games were so big
branching.
on, yeah, and they were so big on freedom of choice, and that was one of their biggest selling. And in the end, it was just poorly done, rushed. I
Yeah.
remember such a rushed ending where you knew that there were scenes missing, and you don't know why they did it, and it turns out they did rush the ending.
Yeah.
It felt like they rushed the ending. It looked like they rushed the ending, and it turns out, yes, they rushed the ending. And then they had to release all that DLC just to fix it. And they
Yeah.
did fix it, to be fair, but the fact they had to rely on DLC,
Yeah.
they didn't charge for it, I suppose, but still, Pete, that was.
It was bad. But it's not nearly as bad as blatant lying because they didn't really do that as such. But there was.
No, it was disappointment rather than
Yeah.
deceit.
Yeah.
Um,
They get away with it, I feel, because they had such a huge, massive track record of being absolutely good with their stories, and the engagement was so good that it didn't bother me. I mean, like I didn't actually play the original ending. I think I was busy doing something else, and I went back to it when they
Did you only play the fixed ending then?
yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, so
Some of them,
I didn't experience it.
I think one of the things I think that the hardcore, which I would include myself, fans were so annoyed at. For me, it was less about the whole blue and red thing, though I saw where they were coming from. It was the way that Shepard, who was this, if you, well, I mean, it depends how you played them, but even if you played the Paragon kind of playthrough, he still wouldn't take crap.
Hmm.
He'd be more diplomatic, sure,
Yeah,
but he wouldn't take shit. He wouldn't take it. He wouldn't be dictated to. Whereas this stupid Star Kid, which is what he was known as, appears almost out of nowhere and then just lays down the law to him, and he just sits there and takes it.
yeah.
And if you've invested 3 games worth of Shepard, even if you're playing the good guy version and you're not, it's even worse if you're playing the goddamn uh, whatever the bad guy version is, not Paragon. What is it? I can't
Oh,
remember the other. Who,
asshole.
yeah, who's even more rebellious. There's no way, and you're sitting there thinking, well, hold on a second, my Shepard would not sit there and take this. He'd point a gun and blow him, try to blow him away. If you're playing the Renegade, that's it. If you're playing the Renegade version, there's no way that you take. If you're playing the Paragon version, you still wouldn't take it because
Mm,
Shepard's shown enough backbone, even as a Paragon. He just sits and takes it.
yeah.
He doesn't question. He doesn't question it. So you're literally killing the. You're literally you're destroying the character almost with that ending, and I think that really pissed off fans even more than it ended up being a red or blue, because there
Mm,
was no option to say go fuck yourself, kid. Which, by the way, they did add. Even though if you choose that option where you literally say go fuck yourself, kid, you get a bad ending. You die. But still, you get the option to say, you know what, go screw yourself.
yeah.
And just adding that simple thing, which was not there before, it makes a big difference, because there was an option just to not just to reject what he was saying.
It was a real shame. I mean, like everything leading up to it was really good. It was all dynamic, and then boom, you get to that final stage, and that. I mean, like they did absolutely everything brilliantly up until that final moment. So I will give them. I'll give them a pass. But there are certain other things that I was quite upset about. I mean, like it wasn't as dynamic as I wanted it to be, and I dare say it would have taken a lot more years to implement. But Miranda disappeared, for instance.
That was
I
bad.
can't.
Yeah, that was bad.
It's like what happened to her, and then the arachnids race or whatever that was. They didn't really have much of a of a presence in the final battle, as I recall. I can't remember, but
What they did, Pete, is they ended up turning the majority of your decisions, of your decisions in the first 2 games, into war score. So the arachnids, as you're talking about, if you made the decision to allow them to live in the first game, the
mm,
payoff was in the third game you got war score, and the war score, and it was just a number, right? So if the war score was above a certain amount, I forget how much it was, you technically got the good ending,
right,
and if your war score was under a certain amount, then you got the bad ending, and it literally wasn't anywhere. It didn't go any further than that. And if you helped the arachnids in the first game, you got extra. Can't remember how much it was. You got extra war score,
mm,
and you got a little. I think you got a little box, a little text box, just saying the arachni, or whatever they were called, are gonna come and help you, and that's it. That's as far as it went. You got there was no scenes, there was no interaction. It was just like, okay, because you saved them and allowed them to live, they're going to
yeah.
send some troops to help you. So your war score against the Reapers is going to go up. That's as far as it went, which was a disappointment, because it's like, okay, so I did all this stuff, never got any more scenes with them ever, and I got some war score. Okay, that's
I,
it.
I,
That was it.
I mean, I think they need to remake it. To be quite honest with you, they need to sort of like visualize their dream with it, and it can be done. So especially with today's technology, it can be done. I would love to see a complete from the ground up remake of it. That would just be absolutely fucking
Problem
amazing.
is, Pete, they've all left. Most of the developers who made the Mass Effect, the original Mass Effect games, are all
Well,
gone.
it's all there. They just have to expand it a little bit in terms of the levels. Like this. I remember going to the Citadel, for instance, and then
Mm.
looking out onto all the blades and thinking, "Wow, all of that's just like this epic metropolis is on each blade. Wouldn't it just be amazing if we could go out to those blades and do some side quests there and stuff? Just like things like that, update the graphics, the character creation, and then the whole linking storylines, the decisions that you made between games that needed to carry through, and keep Miranda in it, for crying out loud.
She was she was in the third game, but she played a really tiny role, I think, where if you romanced her in the second game, you got one cutscene with her.
No.
I think there was one cutscene in the Citadel where she says hello. You don't get to interact any more with her than that.
She's like, but
Whereas,
babe, where you going, babe?
yeah,
Yeah,
whereas if you decided to romance people from the first game, i.e., either Ashley or what was her name, Liara? Was that the blue chick? If you romance one of them, you got a proper kind of significantly deeper storyline. But if you chose Miranda in the second game, then
yeah,
you got one quick scene because she just wasn't written into it. So
yeah. And less is said about Jack, the better, I think.
so it's always the pretty ones. Jack, yeah, okay, we won't mention Jack.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, like, I think for me, Mass Effect 3 kind of gets a pass. They fucked up. I don't think it was necessarily the developers' problem. It was more like the suits up top,
It
which,
was just another problem with deadlines, isn't it? It's
yeah,
just like that was when the third game had to come out, so they rushed it. They rushed the end in it. And stuff like that keeps happening, unfortunately, Pete, and I guess it always will until
yeah.
if until the suits stop interfering.
Or we come up with a way of completely shortening the development cycle, which, the Unreal Engine is trying to do.
Yeah,
Anyway, let's move on to the big topic, or the topic I consider to be fairly big, is Cyberpunk. So they spent a heck of a long time, because they told CD Projekt Red told people straight away, right off the bat, we're developing this, and they just, the PR hype machine started straight away with even from pre-production. And I admit that I got hook, line, and sinker into this, and
yeah, you did. I do remember at the time
yeah,
speaking to our friend Alan about it, whereas we were much more dubious. Whereas like I mean, the studio had a great track record with the Witcher games, which that will be its own podcast with the Witcher 3 because we both adore that
yeah.
game. And they built up a lot of good credit. They really had. So even though you might think, oh, I was silly, you had a good reason to be excited for it because
But
they'd
I was
done nothing.
naive.
Yeah, but
I now
they'd done nothing
realise,
to
yeah,
make you think otherwise, though, had they? They hadn't done anything to make you think that they would screw the landing, so to speak, so badly because they never really had before because The Witcher 3 was so bloody good.
true.
Why would you think that? So you shouldn't be too harsh on yourself.
I since realised that the it's one thing to produce a sword and shield game,
That's
and
true.
quite another to build a living, breathing city metropolis, and have everything all implemented and perfect, and all that kind of thing. And I believe that they could do it because, as you said, they did The Witcher, and The Witcher 3 was absolutely amazing. And as the years rolled by, um, they slowly came out with more and more stuff, and it was just like, oh man, this is going to be absolutely amazing. This is my perfect setting. I'm just going to spend like months in this. I'm going to get completely lost, and um, didn't happen. When the game came out, it was. I mean, I played it on the PC, so I didn't experience all of the bugs that everyone had on console.
So when you're okay, so let's try and explain this for the people watching. Are you more criticizing it for its technical handicaps or for the writing? Because they're obviously two different things. Are you saying that because when it came out, I think the timing of the game coming out was the absolute worst because the last console was literally on its last legs, but the last gen consoles which they made it for, which the game they never should have put them on the last consoles, dude.
Yeah,
because it literally was unplayable. I mean, it didn't play well on the current consoles.
Yeah,
But if they would have just said, you know what, we're going to delay it for a year, or we're just going to have to say, okay, this game cannot be played. It's too much. It just can't come out on the older consoles. And because they
yeah.
tried to force it onto the older consoles, that's why I think they got so much problem. But the point I was trying to make is, are you more criticizing the technical problems that it had, especially for the consoles, or is it the story just was whack? Because I haven't played it, so I have to go completely on what you say.
Well, it's both. It's everything, but
It's all of it.
primarily for me anyway. It starts with the storytelling, and they missed out so much when it came to the storytelling.
See,
They
that's shock. That's much more shocking to me than the technical stuff because
Yeah.
they were so good at that.
Well, see, the thing is, they didn't write The Witcher 3. It's based off a book,
That's fair enough.
right?
Yeah.
So this is another thing I was fairly naive at, because they cut so much out of the story, and I since learned that the amount of shit that they cut out was actually quite stellar. And there was a whole side thing with the monks that were in there that really interested me, and I was really excited to experience that. They didn't put fucking Ciri from The Witcher in the game, which I was hoping they would do, and they hinted that they might do. They cut so much of the main story out that they showed in a cutscene towards the beginning with this mate that you have, and I just like, well, why are you showing me a cutscene? Why aren't we actually doing these missions? And then it was really short. When I thought we were halfway through, it came up with that message of no return. Oh, this is the last point that I was like, you fucking taking the piss. I've only been on it like fucking 8 hours or something like that. And so yeah, it's primarily the story. And then it was just, I tell you, the next thing that really annoyed me about it, it was the justice system. You
Oh
know,
God,
yeah, if you made a mistake or something.
I saw some of the stuff Angry Joe did about the teleporting cops and stuff.
Oh God, yeah. If you were just coming out of the loos, something, right, like the public toilets or something, the police would appear in the cubicles, right, and it'd just be like, what the fuck? How is there like a whole crew of police officers in the loo? It's very convenient, but yeah. And it was even worse for the console players. Oh Jesus Christ! So
I didn't. I bought the game, Pete. As I said to you the other day, I owned the game, and I still own the game. So I paid full price for the game
yeah,
because I pre-ordered it. It's actually one of the last games I've ever pre-ordered because I just don't pre-order anymore because of the way games are nowadays. You
yeah,
can't take that risk. One of the last games I pre-ordered, and then when all the reviews came out and I saw how it was running, I was like, you know what, I'm not even going to touch this until it gets patched, significantly patched. And
yeah.
it ends up and
And,
even now it's in a decent shape or a better shape nowadays, but I still haven't gone back to it. So
and then there was a report that came out a while afterwards about how messed up the whole development thing was, and one sort of element that really stands out for me, and that kind of pissed me off a little bit, was that Keanu Reeves wasn't really originally cast for that role. For like 3/4 of the time, it was someone else, and
do you mean a different actor, or was it just a normal NPC?
a
They were
different actor, completely different
right.
actor.
Who was it? Who was it?
I,
Who was it meant to be?
to be fair, I don't know who it was. I don't think it was
Okay.
anyone famous. But they swapped it out sort of like towards the end of the cycle, and that pissed a lot of developers off, even after having cut so much content out. Whether through fear of pissing off certain groups or not, I don't know. But yeah, this actor must be really fucking annoyed, man. Uh, having being seriously sort of outdone by Keanu Reeves, and I don't put much weight into Keanu Reeves. He's a nice guy and all of that, but he didn't suit the character at all, and he was only there uh,
To
for
be the
show.
face, wasn't he? Yeah, he was there to be the
Yeah.
face of it, wasn't he?
So yeah, that kind of really fucking annoyed me as well.
My stance on Keanu has lessened, by the way. I used to be much more fuck this guy.
Yeah.
But I haven't got a problem with him really. I generally do dislike having real actors in games because I do think it breaks immersion, but that's for me personally. So it's less of a Keanu Reeves problem and just more of a, I don't want to see Idris Elba or whoever it is doing these games. I don't want to. I don't. It takes me away from it. You know what I mean. I don't want. No, you're Keanu Reeves. You're not like you're Keanu Reeves. I don't. You're not the character, whatever the character he plays. I forget his name. Johnny something, isn't it? So
Yeah.
I don't really like the actors in games like that, famous actors. I don't mind them doing the voices, but um, yeah,
It's detrimental, I
it's
think, casting popular actors. It
it's just,
takes away.
it's
It's not like
immersion
the
breaking.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, it's immersion breaking really. No, and when Cyberpunk came out and I realised the train wreck it was, I did feel really bad for you. Just like I know you set your kind of heart on it. I know you were really passionate. Like this was kind of the game that you were looking forward to for years. I remember.
Yeah. There
Um,
was nothing else like it. There still is nothing else like it, actually. And
yeah,
that's what's
unfortunately, it looks like they're giving up on it, doesn't it? They got the DLC that's just come out, but it looks like that they're not gonna make a second game, or
no, it doesn't look like it.
um,
I mean,
that's a shame.
for all those who don't know, since that, the Epic Games, Tim Sweeney asked a crew of people to build a medieval map environment and show it to CD Projekt Red, and it was remarkably like The Witcher 3. And basically, the aim was to entice CD Projekt Red into using the new Unreal Engine and throw away their engine, which they've done. So the new Witcher game is going to be developed in Unreal Engine 5,
Ah,
and as a result of that, the production cycle is going to be dramatically decreased because if you want to know all the technicalities, you look for it, search it up on YouTube. You'll see all of the cutting edge technology that Unreal Engine is using. I'm being a real fucking Unreal Engine fanboy at the moment, but yeah, the fact that they've gone with Unreal Engine 5, I'm so excited for the next Witcher game. You know, but fuck Cyberpunk, and I, if you asked me what games company could do Cyberpunk really well, you know what
who'd you
my
go
answer
with?
would be?
Who?
I think it's a fairly obvious answer. Rockstar. They know how to do open world games.
I'm trying to think if they do, but I'm trying to think if they've ever done anything. They did so their games have been Manhunt, if people remember that one.
They did some
Uh,
table tennis games or something, didn't they? Or tennis, whatever.
yeah, and GTA and obviously Red Dead. So they've never actually really delved into sci-fi unless you class Manhunt as sci-fi, which I
Yeah,
don't think it really
it's
is.
horror, sort of like
Yeah,
it's close. You're right, but
they would be the company to build the world for it for sure. I don't know about the stories and stuff, to be honest with you, but
no,
the world, yeah.
yeah. I mean, like if you got like I don't know, you've got them to do the world, and then you've got another company to do the story. I think it would just be a perfect match, and it would. That's the only real situation I think that it could work. Um, but yeah, I mean, like for me, that's really the biggest letdown for me, and it was lies. It was just lie after lie after lie.
Especially when I remember in all the marketing up to it, and people were all like, "Oh, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? When's it coming out?" And their big lines were like, "It'll come out when it's ready." Yeah, okay. So that didn't end up being very good, did it?
Yeah,
Because it didn't come out where it was already. You should have cancelled the PlayStation 4 version and the original Xbox versions of it. You need to cancel all that stuff and make sure it runs at least okay on the consoles and obviously really good on the PC.
yeah,
So in the end, no matter what they said, they ended up doing the same things that BioWare did, and they rushed it out. And you never know exactly where the peer pressure, where the pressure comes from. Is it somebody at the top of CD Projekt Red just said, this has got to come out, or is it pressure from the console manufacturers saying, well, the
Well,
publishers, where does the power lie in that? The final say is the publishers, or the final say is CD Projekt Red saying, yeah, okay, well, we're going to release it now. Look, they knew, of course, they knew that these are people who make these, who spend years making these games. They knew it was a shit show,
yeah.
but they still released it anyway.
Well, let's
So where does that call come from?
well let's not forget that they delayed it twice. So I think that's a bit of a clue,
Hmm.
right? It's just like it's going to come out when it's ready. Oh, we're going to delay it again. We're going to delay it again. So people were like, "Oh, okay, they're polishing the fucking granny out of this. Okay,
Well,
cool."
yeah,
But yeah, and it comes out and it's just like a complete fucking what the fuck is this? Um, yeah, it's when I say my heart broke, my heart actually fucking broke. I was so disappointed with it.
I remember talking to you, and I remember that I was always a bit more skeptical. That doesn't mean I know it all, but I was always a bit more skeptical just because I'd had the rug pulled out from me from Bioware and everything already, so I was much more
Yeah,
skeptical about it. But they were almost the last bastion of hope. Almost, they were like the last ones, the last ones who hadn't been corrupted and hadn't been taken over by corporate America or corporate whatever you want. They were the last ones.
they were
These were the last,
they were the
the
golden
last.
company, weren't they?
Yeah,
They were like, oh, these guys are untouchable. Yeah, you're right.
yeah. These ones are not going to fall down the same path. These ones are gonna, they're not going to rush out. They're not going to do the same things that we see all the other companies doing with the rushing the games out, loads of bugs and everything like that. These guys are meant to be more consumer friendly for the gamers, by the gamers, for the gamers,
Yeah,
and they went in that direction. They purposely kind of went in that direction because so many of the other ones had fallen from grace. So they took it upon themselves to kind of promote themselves as being that as well.
yeah.
So they played into that role as well, and they've damaged their legacy. I don't know if it's irreversible. I don't think it is. I think if The Witcher 4 comes out and it's anything like The Witcher 3, I do think that people will probably forget. You might, maybe not you, Pete, because I know how much you
Oh
wanted
no, I'll
Cyberpunk.
never forget that shit. It's just like
Um, yeah, but
it's like having a relationship. You meet like this really beautiful girl. She says,
scarred for life.
yeah, I promised to be, everything you want me to be and all that, etc., whatever relationships are. And then it just turns out, and like the morning afterwards, it's just like you realize it was all a complete lie. And she just crushes your heart, stamps on it, and walks away. Um,
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever. I don't think you'll ever quite forgive them, even if Witcher 4 does end up being a really good game. I think you're always going to have a little bit of
oh yeah, 100%.
animosity because it's kind of like this was the game that was built for me, and in the end, you guys screwed it.
Yeah, but I'm more angry at their PR department than anything else because their PR department was the real culprit. And if the team had really sort of more communication with the PR department, it would have gone well differently. I don't know, but they shouldn't have cut all the shit out. They should have just been brave and just left it all in, and that would have only exposed the company more, and more people would have bought it because of the controversy. And it's like Rockstar knew the score. It's like, yeah, okay, we'll take all these lawsuits, we'll take them all on board, but at least we're going to be selling millions upon millions of copies, right? And it's just like people are chomping at the bit for the next title. They're desperate for the next GTA.
I just can't imagine how bad GTA 6 would have to be for it to be a flop. Like, it'd have to be literally the worst game in the world, mate, the worst made
Yeah,
game in the world. Because even if it's a bad game, it'll still sell gangbusters.
yeah. The initial sales are going to will be through the
Um,
roof, mate. It's because they
yeah.
built up that reputation. But anyway,
There is one more game.
yeah.
I think maybe you've blocked it out. I've tried to as well, but I don't think I've managed.
Okay.
It was a game that was from talking of former great studios. This is one we have already mentioned them, but we haven't mentioned this game. Anthem,
Oh, fuck me.
who did that trailer, which turns out, as we now know, many years later,
Mm.
That complete trailer was bollocks. Every part of that trailer was a fabrication because at that point they had no game,
They had nothing. Even the
nothing.
developers watching were like, "Holy shit!"
They were like, "We're meant to pull this off, are we? Nobody told
But with
us that we
a
were meant to pull
couple of
this off."
years, fuck. Yeah,
So that's one of the worst ones. And of course, when it came out, was it the worst game ever? Probably not the worst game ever, but considering the hype and everything, it was not very good. The AI was dumb. The story was. I don't even know what that story was about, dude.
yeah. No, I mean, like the gameplay was okay.
It was all right.
I liked the
But
idea of
but,
having
but
different mechs.
it was just Andromeda, wasn't it? That was the thing. It came out. It came out after Andromeda. I remember saying to you that this
Oh God,
gameplay is just Andromeda's gameplay, which I liked. I liked Andromeda's gameplay. The rest of the game, not so much, but I liked Andromeda's gameplay.
my favorite
And it,
third.
oh god, yeah,
As an,
that's another train wreck from Bioware, right? Two train wrecks in a row: Mass Effect Andromeda, and then followed by Anthem, and
oh
the one, and now they can't even get Dragon Age
yeah, there's loads of
finished, and
shit going on with that. Yeah,
they've fired all their developers. Again, probably another podcast. So yeah, Anthem, complete fabrication. That could be the worst. Now I'm thinking about it. Complete fabrication.
yeah. That
That could be
that's pretty
one of
fucking
the
bad,
worst.
isn't it? I mean,
The fact that the devs didn't know, mate. I mean, can you imagine? Can you
yeah,
imagine being one of those devs thinking, "Excuse me,
yeah. Oh
what?"
my God, yeah. I would have just. I can only imagine how they must have felt. There's loads of ex-developers suing BioWare now, aren't they? Have you heard
Oh
about
yes, right,
this?
yeah,
Yeah,
just came out, didn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll follow that, and we'll comment on
I
it.
remember watching the E3 trailer, and we were all quite impressed because I think we were watching it, me, you, and Alan.
Hmm.
I think we were watching it. We were all quite impressed with the graphics, and you look like Iron Man and stuff like that. We were all quite impressed. And then I remember there's a woman and a guy playing it, and but they sounded scripted because they were scripted. Um,
Yeah,
Talking about, oh, like, I'm going to get this gun, and then they would start talking about the enemies they were fighting, and it was like watching, and it looked so fake. I just didn't realize that it was all fake.
yeah,
I just thought the conversation was a fabrication
yeah.
for the trailer. I didn't realize all of it was so. And I don't know, mate.
Well,
That could be one of the worst ones. That could be.
it's way up there. Whether it beats other legendary liars like No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk, I don't know, but that's down to the individual. But yeah, it is way up there. But really, like, see, I mean, like,
And that game, and No Man's Sky, again, at least they fixed it, or they tried their best to fix it, and they improved it. Anthem was dead a year later. It's
yeah,
gone.
yeah, no,
I think the servers might still. I think the servers might still be up, but there's no support for it whatsoever. They're not adding anything ever now. It's done.
yeah.
So
I mean, this was all as well, like during the whole development of wokeness and that whole issue. And we're not going to take sides, even though we have an opinion.
mhm.
But it's all of this should be left out of gaming. You can't influence games in a political way, in a sort of a current affairs way. Gaming is what it is. It's an escape route. It's like reading a book. It's like watching a movie. None of this that shit should be a factor in games. You can't force any of this shit upon us. But getting back to the whole Microsoft thing, I think that a lot of these issues do actually stem from Microsoft being bullyish and saying, "Oh no, it has to be out on this date." And come rain or shine, you have to release it, and you can fix it later. You know,
One of the worst things. I'm probably going to sound like a right old fuddy duddy, but one of the worst things I think's happened, as well as it being one of the best things, is the rise of obviously IT and the internet and being able to patch software because it's just encouraged developers. It's made them all you like when it was any of the eras before probably even maybe even before broadband or just when broadband was coming in, the discs had to be finished. The cartridges had to be finished. The games had to be finished before they could be sold. They had to be finished. They couldn't have game breaking bugs. They could have small bugs, and yeah, but they couldn't have game breaking bugs because the products would be recalled.
Yeah,
But nowadays, it's just like it's just become this whole we'll fix it later. And even though most of the time, the games do get fixed. It might take 6 months for most games to get to where they should be, and in the end, most of the time, they do get to where they should be. But it's a terrible kind of way of doing business, dude.
yeah,
Because you're literally making the players your beta testers.
yeah.
You are,
It's not fair, and you're right. The internet really spoiled it.
yeah.
You know, 'cause-
And there's nothing you can really do about it because of the PlayStation Plus and the Xbox Live. The consoles they do have this, and on PC it's Steam or Epic Games. They do have the way of just pushing out these hot fixes quickly,
yeah.
um, as they should do. But if that option wasn't there for them, you can bet your ass that the majority of games would be of a higher quality when they came out.
The,
More stable. When I say high quality, I mean
yeah.
would be much more stable, and with certainly the big bugs. The big bugs just wouldn't be allowed to be there.
I do kind of. I feel like it's Microsoft that's being a bit bullyish behind the screens here, and I think it was heavily involved in the No Man's Sky debacle, and I don't know what else, but I think they are sort of like kind of villains behind the scenes sometimes. But
Yeah, I don't. I'm not really. I'm not really a PlayStation fanboy or an Xbox fanboy. I like good games. I own both the systems, not because I'm super rich, but I own both the systems because I like games. So I want access to every game that I can get because it's such a passion of mine.
yeah,
And some of the business practices, this exclusivity, I know why they do it. It's obvious why they do it. Do I like it? No. I think it's anti-consumer. Can you do anything about it? No.
well, are we bothered by it? This is one of the questions that
But you're a PC gamer now, more. So you kind of, I suppose, most of the games end up on PC, even the ones from PlayStation. Most of them end up on PC, even though some of the ports obviously are not great. That's a different story. So I guess as a PC gamer, it's okay. If you're a console gamer and you've got a limited budget,
hmm,
yeah,
it's a problem. It's a problem, especially if you don't have a decent internet, whatever part of the world that you're in. You haven't got fast internet like us in the Western world do, and if you bought a game from a shop and you bring it back home and it's just completely broken, then Jesus, what are you going to do if you don't have internet?
yeah, I've. It's gotten to the point where any new game that comes out, you more or less know that even if you get the disc, if you're still old fashioned and you still buy discs like I do, even if you get the discs, you know that you're not going to be playing the game for another 3 or 4 hours because you know there's going to be a day one patch
Yeah,
nearly as big as the game, and that's become commonplace. Again, it's really bad practices. It's terrible habits that unfortunately has generally become acceptable. Like I say, the fact that I expect to have to download a 20 gigabyte day one patch for more or less
yeah,
every big game. The fact that I know that that's commonplace now, and unfortunately, you end up kind of accepting it. You kind of say, okay, I mean, nothing I can really do about it. This is, and it's only going to get worse because games are going to become more digital. We know that. So what can you do? It's like, okay, so this is the games going forward. The games are all are mostly going to be unfinished on release, and you have to accept that it's going to take a couple of weeks, if not a couple of months, before you really get the way the game should be,
yeah.
and that's just commonplace.
So how do we get them to stop all this practice? It's a fairly big question, which I don't necessarily have the answer to, but I think that the big way, obviously, to get them to stop doing it is to stop buying the games.
Well, it depends on a lot of it is to do with refund policies. On Steam, as I'm sure you know, Pete, there is a 2 hour refund.
Yeah,
So if you buy a game on Steam and it's an absolute train wreck, as long as you haven't played more than 2 hours, you can return it. No such thing exists on the consoles.
Oh, there's something like that on the Xbox. I'm sure there is.
Really, what, a 2 hour window thing?
It's something like that. It's a similar thing, I swear, because I did it before. I shouldn't really be saying this because they'll probably take the game away now. But when I bought Conan, right? Uh,
What, Exiles? Is
yeah,
that what it is?
yeah, and I think I played just over 2 hours, and I realised this is when it just came out, when it was like a whole buggy mess, and um, I sent them a message saying this game's shit. I want my money back. Blah blah blah. And there was a whole sort of thing about it, and they eventually gave me my money back. But what they forgot to do was take the game off my
Take the
list.
game away.
Yeah, so
Oh, they'll be right on that now, Pete. Somebody will hear this now, and you'll go check your game. It'll be
oh,
gone.
fine, it's shit anyway. So,
Mm.
uh, but I think really the only way to get them to stop doing it is to sort of voice our concern and not buy it, for fuck's sake. If no one buys it, if everyone stops buying all these new EA NFLs and all games and all that shit, then they'll listen, won't they? They have to.
You need to get, obviously, neither one of us is obviously a law student, but you need to get obviously much more protection for buyers who, you know, like I said, the refund window 2 hours. I mean, to be honest, that's still a bit stingy,
Yeah,
especially
it
with
should
how
be
some
like
games,
three or
some
four.
games nowadays. I mean, if you're buying an RPG, to be honest with you, 2 hours you'll be lucky to get out of the tutorial part. So they need to extend that, and also it needs to be universal. So if it is on the Xbox, then I'll be corrected. But I didn't know about it for sure. So if it is there, they sure don't advertise it. Um, where digitally, and then of course, if you buy a game on discs, you back in the day, you could return games. Do you remember you could return games to EB? Do you remember
Mm.
this?
Vaguely, yeah.
So you could literally, I think you had a week. Now we all know why they stopped, because people, of course, as they do, would abuse it, because people would play the games, rush the games, finish the games, and take them back. Can't do much about that part, but there needs to be some kind of more protection so that the games companies are held much more accountable for the initial products that they put on these digital platforms,
Mm.
because it just seems like they just get away with it. As long as they patch it later, then apparently that's fine. Where there should really be some kind of, not damages awarded, but some kind of like, okay, well, if you release a game that does not do what it's meant to do, then at the very least you need to partially refund. Some companies have done like, oh, because we've let the player base down, we'll give you a free DLC, and they've done that, and that apparently that makes it all right if they give a £3 DLC for free,
Yeah.
and they think that, but there needs to be more protection. But I don't know how you'd go about that. But there needs to be some more buyer protection, because right now it's like, okay, you buy a game, um, you're told it's going to be great. Of course, all the hype machines and all the influencers, which are paid off. A lot of them are paid off, as you know. So
Well, it's a trading standards thing that needs to step up and
yeah,
you know
yeah,
and 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 and
yeah.
and evolve essentially, and this kind of moves on to the whole big topic of microtransactions, which we will touch upon, and we will give our very strong opinions on it. Game companies need to sort it out. They need to stop being so effing greedy and saying, "Oh, it takes such a long time to do these things." It's just like I don't really understand what is taking so fucking long to develop a game. I mean, like, if I'm trying not to be so naive about it. I think I probably am, but if someone could literally sit me down and explain to me why it takes 5, 6 years with a company of like 50 to 100 people, why does it take that long to build a game together, to put a game together? I genuinely don't understand. If someone can explain it to me, fair enough. But like, honestly, what takes so long? What's the biggest portion of it? You know, and maybe we should just unify under one engine. Maybe we should all go with something like Unreal or
Well,
Frostbite or something.
that would help, wouldn't it? I mean, that would
Yeah,
improve the times
you know,
across the board.
everyone pulls their resources together. Rockstar talks to CD Projekt Red. CD Projekt Red talks to EA, and right. Why can't we all just unify and share our knowledge and bring out games which just blow everyone's fucking socks off and stuff? Why can't we do that? Because of greed, and that's what we need to sort out and resolve. And So anyway, yeah, we're going to wrap this up. It's a very interesting discussion of how games companies can just easily lie through our teeth, but we keep falling for it. We keep falling for it. Stop pre-ordering
That's
games.
yeah.
Stop.
Don't pre-order games. Definitely, there's no reason to pre-order games anymore.
Yeah,
The best thing to do is wait. Wait. You don't need to get it that day, and then go on YouTube, which like you are now, listen to us, and you'll find several reviews and watch more than one review. Don't just rely on one review, and then you'll be able to make your own mind up because the people will say similar things,
yeah. Treat
and then you can make your own mind up.
It's almost as if you should treat it as if you're a year behind. So if a game is due out a certain month, just pretend it's due out that month next year,
Mm.
right? Because by the time you get there, it's going to be cheap. You'll have a good understanding of whether it's fucking good enough in the first place. So that's what I'm kind of trying to get myself into. Like my brother-in-law, he's mastered that, completely mastered it, and he pays like 10 quid for a fucking game that's a year old, and he's having a great time. He doesn't care.
I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle. Most of the time, I can kind of wait a couple of months.
Yeah,
Every now and again, there will be a game that does get me, I suppose.
yeah,
But even the games that do get me, I still don't pre-order. I might buy them a couple of days later, but I will still wait to make sure it's not an absolute train
yeah,
wreck. I've conditioned it in my mind to know that most games that come out nowadays are going to be unfinished. That's not a good thing, but I have trained myself that that is the way games are made nowadays.
yeah,
Wrongly or rightly, that is how they are. But I will still watch two or three different reviewers who will look at different parts of the game, so that I can say, okay, even though I really should wait 6 months
yeah,
when I know that it will be in a better place because it will be patched. And sometimes I do cave, and I can admit that I do. But even when I do cave in to the temptation, I still watch something to give me a week or so, just to make sure that I'm not being completely screwed.
yeah.
And that's how I look at it.
Okay, that was a good discussion. I really enjoyed that. I hope you guys have enjoyed it as well. If you have
Yep.
enjoyed it, please subscribe. Please do all the YouTube things. That
And I'll give a quick shout out to all the people from the Tottenham boards that I go on and the videos, because I know that there's a couple of subs. So don't worry, this isn't a football show. I've said that already, but a little bit of a shout out to those who did sub, and I do appreciate it, guys. So
Absolutely,
if
yeah.
anyone's
Thank you so
watching it,
much, guys, for giving us a sub. It's really appreciated. We are a new channel, and we're really trying to sort of get our own space up there. So until our next podcast, we'll see you later.
thanks for listening, guys.
Take care.